Welcome to the OneFix YouTube channel. I'm Craig, the Managing Director, and all I can say is like and subscribe because we're going to have some great content coming on how to do things, hints and tips on your PCs, behind the scenes footage, and loads more. So yep, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and hit the bell.
Hi everybody, Craig from OneFix here. Today, really happy to be doing a webinar today about cloud and basically going through some cloud myths and busting the myths. Really pleased to introduce Dan Coady from Amatis Networks. Dan, hope you can hear me.
I can indeed, Craig. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Good to see you. So really quickly, I'm just going to do a really quick intro on OneFix for those people that are watching that haven't met us before. So OneFix, we are an IT managed service provider. We look after sort of SME IT basically for companies with between kind of 5 and approximately 150, 200 staff. We do all sorts of things, including help desk, cybersecurity, and also cloud, and that's what we're going to cover off and talk about today. Dan, I fancy doing a bit of an intro. Let us know a bit about you and Amatis Networks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Dan Coady. I head up sales team here at Amatis Networks. We're a Reading-based network and infrastructure service provider, specializing in network connectivity, so business internet connectivity, and data hosting, be that co-location data centers or cloud, as we're here to discuss today. And I suppose our key services, working with partners such as OneFix, is pulling all of that together for business solutions to meet every customer requirement for end-to-end networking cloud solutions.
Fabulous stuff. Excellent. Thanks, Dan. So I thought we could kind of almost just, we know each other reasonably well. I thought we could kind of have a bit of a chat in the chill mode for maybe 20, 30 minutes and run through some of the things about cloud, maybe bust a few myths, talk about a few points. So I've made a few notes to kick off with, and I think if I just maybe fire a question at you and then we can chat it through, if that's all right. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Okay, fantastic. So the first point, I mean, look, you guys obviously run your own cloud. For those without getting too technical about terminology, I mean, that's what we would class as a private cloud versus a public cloud. Public cloud being kind of Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Workspace, Google G Cloud, all that kind of stuff. Why should people even think about private cloud versus public?
That's a good question. I think that's probably the key question for everyone to think about. For me, there's no right or wrong in terms of it has to be private or it has to be public. It's based on our experience. It comes down to what each individual customer or each individual business needs. As you will have seen on a day-to-day basis, you've got some customers that have very simple requirements and they just need to host an application or some critical business data offsite for DR to protect against power cuts, fires, floods, theft, whatever it may be. And on the other end of the scale, you have some much typically larger organizations that have far more complex requirements. The benefit of public cloud is that it's so easily accessible. You don't even need to engage with a person to jump on the website, put your credit card details in, and you have a server there and waiting in a matter of minutes. I think the benefit from our perspective as a private cloud provider, it's more of an infrastructure as a service offering. So we provide you as a partner with a pool of dedicated resources, and you can manage that environment to do as you will to meet each individual customer's requirements. I think the key benefits, the obvious ones, are typically around size. So we're a small business, you're a small business. Our focus is our customers and building those relationships. Sure. Understanding their pains, their challenges, what they're trying to achieve, and we come up with a solution to meet those requirements and make sure that they are protected against those things that we don't want to talk about. It could be an office catches fire, it could be a flood, it could be something as simple as a power cut, meaning that your servers in your office that everybody connects into are offline. So we ensure that those services or those issues are thought about and solutions are implemented to cater for that. You can get into the more technical elements, I suppose, from a service offering perspective, specifically with my Amatis Cloud that we provide. There is a certainty of price. So the maximum price increase that we would issue to OneFix on an annual basis is 5%. I know from some of the environments and conversations I've had with our customers, Microsoft have the ability to implement price increases whenever they wish because of the sheer size of them and the nature of the licensing. From a partner perspective, I'd like to think that your experience of my Amatis Cloud so far, you don't need to be an accredited expert to use the platform. It's a fairly straightforward, user-friendly interface. It's sliding scales. It's fully bespoke. One of the challenges that some businesses may find with the likes of public clouds, although there's a huge list of options available, is that you are sometimes limited to predefined specifications of servers. So what's on the list,
specs and everything. Yeah.
match. Exactly that. Whereas in private cloud, working with a smaller provider, you have the option to bespoke build servers to meet your business's requirements to the letter. One of the other items might be from a scalability perspective. If one of the huge benefits of cloud in general, be that public or private, is the elasticity of it. It's the fact that you pay for what you need at that point in time. So a business may want to implement a cloud environment right now and then have plans within the next 6 to 12 months to scale that further. Sorry, I'm being called on Teams. I'm just going
to... The joy of digital communications.
Absolutely. So one of the challenges you might find in public cloud, without investing significant amounts of money in terms of reserving resource in hyperscaler environments, is that one of your environments might be in Zone 1, DC1 in the UK, and then when you come to build your expanded platform or add resource to that pool in the future, it could well be within the same region, but it could be hundreds of miles away. So you then may be faced with latency issues of data or transactional information passing between the two environments, things like that. And one of the other big ones, someone's persistent, sorry. One of the other items might be, depending on the level of investment businesses need to make to implement a solution that meets their needs in full, is autonomy of network failover. So within our control, obviously we have data centers and hosting capabilities that we also then provide, or have the ability to provide you as a partner with network overlay as an enabler to tie everything together, enhancing security, performance, scalability. We can fail over networks within IP ranges between multiple locations, whereas in public cloud, again, it is possible, but you have to invest significant amounts of money and budget to be able to make that work, because it's non-standard, it's not off the shelf, which is typically how the hyperscaler models work. Sorry, I rambled on a little bit there. But
no,
on the first point.
Because I'm going to dive into a few of those points then. I mean, in terms of actually touching on the last point probably first, being a kind of doing what we do, being managed services, we're working with quite regionalized businesses, to be fair. I mean, obviously we will work with people anywhere in the world, but our client base primarily is in the core of the Thames Valley. I think actually that fits quite nicely with your offering in terms of where you're positioned in terms of data centers and stuff. So I mean, it's quite South-centric, isn't it, in terms of your setup and your layout?
Physical presence, absolutely, yes. Yeah, Thames Valley in London.
Which means, again, fantastic, speed and connectivity for those people. I mean, anywhere in the UK, but obviously those of us in the South, we're going to expect very, very quick connectivity. And I think you also touched on the fact of potentially there's options there. Obviously, you guys are not just a cloud provider. You do connectivity as well. We obviously, some of the clients that we work with at the moment, we've laid in connectivity from yourselves, and they would see even quicker speeds, I guess, or lower latencies to your cloud than they would typically to public cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. In the same ilk that OneFix operate, we can operate and deliver services nationwide. But from an added value perspective, where customers see the most benefit, it's and again, customer experience, locality helps, because it obviously makes face-to-face interactions easier. Although a lot of everything's done typically remotely these days. But you'll probably see one of the banners behind me. But yes, connectivity-wise. One of the other initiatives we worked on is unbundling exchanges. So from a cloud perspective, if a customer is hosting their mission critical or business information within our core network in one of our data centers or in our cloud environments, then yes, we can use our network basically as the enabler to bring them on net to their cloud information. So we can do some clever configurations by, it's an extension of the customer LAN directly into the hosting environment. So it removes the need for VPNs in some instances, although VPNs offer a level of security with encryption. You're still going out across the public internet, so anything can happen. There's no SLA on the internet, as I'm sure everyone's aware. So again, it's just layers of security, trying to enhance customer experience, making life easier to scale environments. That's the whole benefit of cloud. But the connectivity is certainly a valuable asset in enhancing user experience, reducing latency.
Makes sense.
For best of experience.
I think another key point you touched on fairly early in what you're saying was around that kind of that small niche piece, and actually that being a real power advantage, I guess, because certainly from my experience, if we ever have any kind of issues with public cloud stuff, for example, I mean, our public cloud offering is primarily Microsoft Azure. We don't really deal with the other platforms, but getting to speak to somebody there, I mean, no chance. You might be, you get a support ticket and you might get some chat back. You might get a phone call, but trying to solution engineer anything or actually get any kind of real technical level assistance is nigh on impossible unless you're spending enough money. And most people, I don't think, are spending enough money for that. I mean, you'd have to be pretty big to be putting a big spend in Azure. So I guess that's a power play for you and for us, I guess, is that we can offer that bespoke expertise, I guess.
Absolutely. And it's the experience we've got, and similar to yourselves, we have test environments and we run various services in public cloud hyperscaler environments. It's pulling it all together, and it's building those relationships. It's understanding what the customers need, how each individual business operates. It may be that, touching back on our conversation a second ago around networking, although we can deliver standard Ethernet connectivity, if you like, to tie everything together, customer locations, if a business runs from multiple sites into a centralized hosted environment. But it may also be that customers are running certain applications in Azure or AWS or Google or Oracle or any hyperscaler environment. We together, OneFix and Amatis, we have the ability to use our core network to link those also. So, for example, you mentioned Azure, we could use something like ExpressRoute to bring an existing public cloud environment on net to our core network or a customer network. So whether that's delivered into a spoke as a managed private network, so it's seen as another extension, another site on their core network, or delivered across an existing connection onto a port on the back of the router. So again, it's accessed locally, but it's that physical piece of string, if you like, to put it in very simplistic terms. Apologies, you're speaking to a salesperson. If you imagine that logical piece of string from your office up to your public cloud, it's secure. It has an SLA. It's a bit of fiber somewhere that has, if it breaks, it can be fixed. You can build resilience into that piece. Again, it's just another layered security approach above VPNs that can scale to support businesses' requirements.
So I guess to be even less technical about it in terms of that ExpressRoute piece, that means, I guess, if someone's hosting in your cloud and they've also got some public facing services in Azure, then by putting that ExpressRoute in, it means that they can get essentially kind of a direct connection between those machines, between those two servers, even though one lot's in your cloud, the other lot's in Microsoft's cloud, and they will talk like they're sitting next to each other essentially in an office.
Exactly that. So there's no, you can host some in private, some in public. It's, I suppose the key question for me going into a customer meeting to understand what they're doing and how they're doing it is how they're accessing the information is key. Because it's great having something hosted off-site because you've already embarked on that adoption of cloud technologies and looking to off-site data for a specific reason, be that compliance, disaster recovery, security, etc. It may be that you're fed up with the noise of your servers in the corner of your office, but how it all comes together and how it's accessed is key. Especially we were talking not so long ago with it being cybersecurity awareness month. It's how we mitigate against the risks and to bring it all together as securely as possible.
And I suppose that's thinking about that cloud journey. I mean, obviously there's going to be some people watching this that maybe have things in the cloud. There's probably some people on here that are already using public cloud. There's probably going to be a lot of people watching this that are still thinking, how do I use the cloud? What can I do with it? Any tips on really how to start that kind of cloud journey? Anything you can think of as words of wisdom on that?
I think the talk to someone that is already working in cloud. So, Craig, you and the team, if someone has questions, there's going to be specific barriers. It might be, how much does it cost? How reliable is it? How do I know where my data is? It might just be the uncertainty of, if as an IT manager, obviously I'm not an IT manager, but as an IT manager in a business, there may be some questions around responsibility, because obviously this individual is responsible for the entire business infrastructure. And if it doesn't work, it's going to be their name on the chopping block. So if there's any questions, it's engage with partners or your existing IT company, or it may be someone else who has experience in cloud, cover those risks, those questions, and it's paving a way for a solution that works. It doesn't have to be done in a big bang. You don't have to be one day all my servers and data are in the office and the next minute they're in the cloud. It can be a staged approach. With all of this stuff, it's not a small change. Moving mission critical information and business data and systems and applications in some instances is a huge risk. And I think it's important for businesses such as yourselves and such as myself. We need to build that trust and credibility. You wouldn't just turn up to a business, for example, take your car, for example. You've got a £250,000 car. You wouldn't just take it down to the local dealer and say, can you fix this? You need to understand what they do. Are they serious? Are they experts in that area? And I think that's key for us in terms of building that trust and credibility. It could be that physical servers just need to move offsite in their current state into a data center for a period of time, just to test the whole offsite model, because just by moving that data, you're introducing another layer of complexity, which is the connectivity element. How well is it going to perform? How are users going to access that information? And then after a defined period, if that works and everybody's comfortable with it and the risks, then you can look at stage 2. It doesn't have to be big bang, I suppose. But the short answer is speak to the experts. If you've got questions, ask them, and that's what we're here to do.
Makes sense. I guess actually that's another point, something you haven't actually touched on, but that piece where you were saying about staging the migration. I mean, you guys also, obviously we resell it, but you guys also directly do physical server hosting. So I guess people can co-locate, so they could put some physical kit into your data center and then also expand into the cloud in that route as well, couldn't they? That's another option.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some customers that are running some applications in public cloud, some in Amatis cloud, some in colo. And I think that's the value added piece, where we're network and infrastructure only. So we stick to what we're good at. And that's why we work with strategic partners such as yourselves, who can help with all of the addition, with a safe pair of hands in the background that have invested in the data center and the network. And customers can work with partners such as OneFix to then focus on all the other elements that we don't do. It's bringing it all together, meeting business requirements, and it has to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? It's pretty mission critical stuff. It can't really not work. So,
No,
on that
absolutely.
basis, I guess another thing worth exploring, and then what I might do is we'll start to bust a few myths about cloud, or try to. But what are you guys kind of do in terms of backup? Because obviously there's an old saying, I think it's the cloud is just somebody else's computer plugged into the internet. So we move the data into cloud. We've still got, I guess, some responsibility there to back stuff up. We can't just go, it's in the cloud, it's all protected and secure. So can you maybe just give us a bit of an overview as to kind of what you guys do as standard, and then what options there are to add on to that to kind of protect the data better?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there in terms of, I think the official definition of cloud is your data hosted on servers in someone else's facility or somewhere else, which is exactly what it is. From a cloud perspective, it's our physical kit. We still have to buy physical kit, and it's just obviously on a much larger scale to support multiple customers rather than just individual servers. In terms of backup, it's an interesting question, because it's all down to each individual business's requirements. So you can you start this journey on the road of how protected you want to be, what's the risk versus what's the budget and the cost, because you can go from excuse me. So, for example, in our cloud environment, we've got some very clever storage that takes a nightly or hourly snapshot of the server itself, and we hold that data for 7 days. So, in the event that something happens to the physical infrastructure, then we can restore a customer's VM back to any one of those points within the 7-day period. And we do that as standard. That's just part of the value-added service that we offer. Now, you can also then look at specific file level backup overlays. So for Amatis, we use Veeam. I know there are many other flavors of backup services out there. We can simply take a copy of the server and the data at any one point. We can store it in the same data center, a separate data center, and you can go all the way down the line to having full-blown, highly available replication across multiple sites, subject to how critical is the data. What's the acceptable loss of data in terms of if there was an issue, how quickly does the business need to be back up and running, and what's the level of change in the customer data between those 2 points? Because if you're working with a lot of spreadsheets or databases, the change differentials can be quite large. So for some businesses, if the servers went down and they were restored within 2 hours, that could be acceptable because there's not a lot of change in the data at that point. Whereas some businesses, if they're high levels of transactions, that change could be huge. That could be millions of pounds worth of transactions from a retail perspective. It could be data logging for critical servers in the database. So it's understanding what each of those requirements are for each individual customer, but then we can put together solutions to make sure. And again, that doesn't have to be a big bang approach. It could be, right, well, let's start with a backup and then see how we get on. And down the line, it could be you're building that technology roadmap in terms of this is where we are, this is where we want to be, and how and when can we get there.
And I guess it also, as you say, it kind of depends. It's that risk versus cost, isn't it? So, like, you can build the most highly resilient, highly available solution if you have the budget to do that. But if you don't, then obviously it's a trade-off as to, how much do you want to spend on making that available versus, like you say, what are those recovery time and recovery point objectives that meet the business needs as well. So, I guess there's always a trade-off, isn't there, with backup and high availability. So.
Well, I suppose the analogy it's an insurance policy, isn't it? It's only ever as good as when you need it. But I think the key thing to highlight is that the importance of businesses actually backing up their data and having that in the event that something happens. Because one of the key benefits of cloud is obviously the physical infrastructure is our responsibility as the cloud provider. So making sure that the lights are on, all the firmware and OS and everything's updated. That's our responsibility as the infrastructure provider. And then it allows you and our customers to focus on the applications and the data and how it needs to work. If something happens, obviously from a service provider perspective, we make sure that we have all of those arrangements and support and security and everything in place to protect the platform. But it's making sure that the data is protected, because from a customer perspective, that's the most important piece.
That's absolutely the crown jewels, isn't it, from that point of view? So, makes sense. So yeah, let's a few cloud myths, or not necessarily myths, but things that I hear certainly when talking about cloud. I'm going to start with the elephant in the room, which is we often get people when we're, say, for example, we're putting a quote together, and they'll think, oh, I'll have a cloud quote because the cloud's going to be cheaper, and then they get a quote and they look at their cost of their buying a server and they're on-prem and all that, and they go, oh, hang on a minute, if I amortize my server over 3 years, suddenly I'm at the same cost as the cloud, and then the cloud's costing me more. So, my response to that always is, look, I guess the point is slightly being missed. It's more about flexibility. But what's your take on that? Because I guess it must be a kind of something you sometimes do come across when people suddenly go, oh, I thought it was going to be cheaper than just buying my own servers and hosting them myself.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So my response to that would be, cloud is you have to shift your way of thinking. So from a traditional physical tin server perspective and hosting your servers on-prem or even in data center, there is an element of capex. So every what should be 3 to 5 years, should be 3. Sometimes kit can stretch to 7, 9. I've seen 11 in some instances. But you have to buy these servers outright. So there's an element of capital expenditure to buy the kit. You then maintenance on top, and then it's your time as whoever's responsible within the organization for managing that infrastructure, for security, patching, firmware, software upgrades, OSs, etc., etc. The list is endless. Whereas moving to a data center as a service, infrastructure as a service, cloud, colo is a poor example, but you're moving to an operational expense. So you're renting that infrastructure, but that infrastructure is not your responsibility. That time is completely freed up. I think the other element is comparing the resource itself. So we're probably quite a good example because we are running a best-in-class Cisco UCS environment, VMware. It's not cheap to buy, to run, to rent. But if you're comparing that level of infrastructure versus I jumped on eBay and bought a couple of servers for, then obviously the costs aren't going to match up. But this is where the benefit of cloud, as we touched on before, is that elasticity. It's if you need to make a change, you just jump on a portal. In the example of my Amatis Cloud, it's a sliding scale. Excuse me. As you've seen, I want to increase the level of RAM or storage on this particular VM to X, run, done. Whereas from a physical perspective, you've got to order that in, install it, and it works. But then that's there in the event that increase was made for a specific project. In cloud, you can scale that back down. You're only paying for it for the time you need, but from a physical perspective, you've then got all this additional resource that you might not necessarily need.
I think that's a great point. I mean, that's certainly in I'm going to say the old days, but I don't mean it in a bad way, but in the way, when we used to put together servers for, VMware hosts, VM hosts for, Hyper-V or VMware or whatever, and you size these servers up, you're kind of thinking, well, what's the workload going to be like over the next 3 to 5 years? You're taking a bit of a finger in the air guess at that. You're typically overbuying what you need because you don't want to undersize it. So you overspec what you've got. And so I guess, you're inadvertently then paying for performance that you're not using or you don't need. But I think, as you said, you touched on, it's that quick change, but also the fact that, 3 to 5 years time when you come to replace your physical server, there's a huge piece of project work there to also rip and replace that. Whereas again, in the cloud, other than potentially upgrading operating systems, there's it can sit there ad infinitum, increase the resources, and pay for that as you need it. So I guess that's a key difference, isn't it? So.
But don't get me wrong. I mean, I've seen some instances as well where customer applications or the model of their business and the nature of the industry they're in, they have very specific hardware requirements, which some cloud platforms just won't support. Our standard was one of them. So we can get that hardware in to support that. However, in some of those instances, the most cost effective and from a speed of delivery perspective as well, it may be that some of these data systems and applications can run in our cloud environment, and they also still keep an element of physical kit of their own in the data center. But we have the ability to pull all that together and work seamlessly as if it was still sat in a single rack in the customer's building. So another bespoke, hybrid cloud approach, if you like.
Yeah, and that's I guess that's where all the value add is, isn't it? That's the kind of the special sauce that makes it all kind of work, is bringing all that stuff together and bespoking a solution and making it fit correctly for the customer. That's kind of key.
Exactly that.
I mean, we're coming
we do our
towards
best.
The end, as we all do, absolutely. I think we're coming up towards the end of our half an hour. It's gone very quick, actually.
That has been very quick. I've obviously spent too much time talking.
Not at all. No, it's really valuable advice. Is there anything you want to add that you think I haven't covered off, and then I'll let people know how they can get in touch with us all?
I think for me, I'm just trying to think of anything we haven't covered. If someone was interested in finding more about the cloud, how do they contact you? How do they come to you with these questions and kick off that discussion?
Great point. Well, in the corner up until recently, in fact, the other corner, look, it's mirrored. In that corner down there, up until recently, was our web address. I've turned it off because I've put a banner down the bottom now talking about our next event, which I'll go into in a minute. But you can either, obviously, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, pop a comment in, reach out to me that way, get connected with myself, obviously connect with Dan as well. That's absolutely fine. www.one-fix.com. That will get you our web address, and on there is obviously all of our contact details. I think what I will say, I'm not sure, Dan, we firmed this up, but I'm going to throw it out there. I'm sure we've got some offers and deals we can do on my Amatis Cloud, which is Amatis' private cloud platform, where we can give people some taster credits. We can work out a way to basically give you some time on there to to see what the platform's all about. There's a few ways that we can do that. Either we as OneFix can help you plan out a migration and maybe say put some funds towards getting you into the cloud on that basis. Alternatively, if you're a little bit bigger and you can't want to kind of co-manage that, there are options there where we can kind of give you more of that management platform, and you can use it a little bit more like you would with Microsoft Azure, where you are in control of building and adjusting your VMs, and we will essentially bill you for the consumption on that basis. And again, we can probably work out some credits there. So basically, what I'm saying in a nutshell is kind of reach out to me if you're interested in, say, looking at how you can get workloads onto the cloud. We will work with you to make that as attractive a proposition as possible, won't we, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's as we touched on before. It's dipping your toe in the world of cloud and see if it works for you.
100%. Makes perfect sense. Final thing I'm going to say before I say thank you very much is, as you've probably seen on that whizzing banner at the bottom of the screen, we have another event coming up. It's our last in-person event of the year, 15th of November in Farnborough, the Aviator Hotel. So fantastic venue. I think from 11 o'clock, I think, till 4 p.m. Basically covering IT, budgeting, trends, what's going to happen in 2024. We're going to have some really interesting speakers. Going to have a panel discussion there. Couple of vendors coming along who are very kindly sponsoring the event. One of them, Terra, are quite a bespoke hardware manufacturer, and they're going to be there with doing a laptop giveaway as well. So amazing event, completely free to come along to. You'll see there's a short code link on the bottom of the screen. I think it's s.one-fix.com/2024. I'll stick it into the comments chat after this as well on LinkedIn. But if you're not already signed up, please do sign up. Places are going really quickly now. We're probably 60-70% full on that. So get your spot reserved. I'd love to see you there. Dan, I think, are you coming along? I'm not sure if you're coming along to that one or not.
I'm not registered yet, but I will be there. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. So Dan will be there as well, so you get a chance to meet Dan in person. So why wouldn't you want to sign up? There you go.
Say that as you will. Yeah.
Look at that. Look, Dan, really appreciate you giving up half an hour of the day today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. I hope it's been valuable and informative. As Dan's already said, if you would like more information, please do reach out either directly to me. Feel free to connect to Dan as well. We're both here to help you succeed with your cloud journey. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. I hope it was useful. Thanks, Craig.
Take care. See you. Bye.
Take care. All the best. Bye-bye.